The German women froze in amazement in April 1945. The command was not part of the training or the warnings about being captured. The tin roof of the processing tent at a British prisoner of war camp was battered by rain like continuous machine gun fire. The group of 47 German auxiliary women, radio operators, clerks, and nurses who had been apprehended during the most recent fall were present. A young British Royal Army Medical Corps RAMC, Corporal Davies, repeated the instruction. Simply take off your boots, shut your socks, show us your feet. To stay up to date on new stories, we recommend subscribing to our daily videos. Now, let's return to the story. Elsa, a 23-year-old German auxiliary, had been living in the same boots for 4 months. She had foreseen the expected horrors of being taken, probed, threatened, or made to feel worthless. However, this made no sense. "What do they really want?" she whispered to Helga. Helga, who was only 19 at the time, had walked for 3 weeks from the collapsing Eastern Front. Although her feet were sore, she would not claim to be weak. Nevertheless, Corporal Davis was accompanied by other RAM medics who carried clipboards and medical bags. The situation appeared to be more like a medical examination than an interview. In 1945, approximately 15,000 German women were taken into custody by the Western Allies, and hardly any of them, possibly 2%, could have predicted the request. They had been instructed to anticipate suffering. The first woman, Anna, who was 31 years old, stepped forward as the mud squalled. She was determined to go first to protect the younger women from what could be a strange check. As she waited, she started to unteach her boots from the rough wooden bench. The leather was brimming with sweat and dried out. After 4 months of moisture and wear, she tugged on the boot. It eventually disintegrated and made a terrible sound. The smell was potent and immediate. The presence of rotting leather, old sweat, and infected flesh led Anna to peel her sock hard and forcefully. When it freed, it ripped a layer of her skin. A young British doctor, Private Miller, stood up. He knelt down to examine his foot, took a single step, and let out an alarm sound that indicated he was in urgent need of medical attention. The other women looked at him in confusion. What is the rationale behind the British taking care of their adversaries' feet and spraying them with expensive drugs, even though Private Miller was already clamoring for provisions, warm water, cloths, and medicine to fight against germs? However, Anna had already suffered severe foot damage. The worsening of Elsa's condition was confirmed by the medic who spoke in translation for the group. The worst-case scenario involved a painful strain of foot that caused the skin to peel off with the contact of the socks, leaving the flesh dark and grey in places. The toes were swollen to their normal size, and Elsa felt nothing when the medic touched the blackened area. The nerves in the area were dead. "How long has this been happening?" the doctor asked through a translator. "After a 4-month period, I've been walking in wet, dirty boots that were never taken off or dried out. It's been like that since January." Elsa muttered, acknowledging her inability to walk. The chief medical officer requested a complete medical team, and, after examining the subsequent woman, it was revealed that 90% of them had severe foot problems, making the second woman even worse. Their feet had been ruined by the long retreat from the Eastern Front, which often included a 300-mile walk without any medical assistance. The tent filled with the smell of rotting flesh and fear. Helga observed the checks, each discovery more shocking. Pushing her own bare feet into her boots, she attempted to cover up her painful secret. The women were surprised by the behavior of the British medics, who were not repulsed or troubled. One was pacing to right, another prepared to heat water, and utilizing a portable cooker. They were treating the prisoners with the same level of care and speed as they would treat their own wounded patients. The head medic instructed that those with black tissue, bad infections, or open wounds would be prioritized. The enemy was being treated as if they were their own people. Clara Ara, 18, dislodged her socks to reveal her black toes and severe frostbite from the winter retreat. She had been walking on dead tissue for 2 months. The medic, an older man, paused her actions. She should have been terminated a few weeks ago. Clara Ara stated that there were no doctors present at the time and that she required urgent medical attention. The British medical team arranged to retrieve the sulfur powder, warm water, and all other necessary items from the tent. The arrival of more people, the appearance of tables, and the treatment of enemy feet were all signs of a serious medical crisis. Sulfur powder was the most effective medicine at the time, costing around $25 per pound in 1945. The medics were pouring it onto the feet of German women. "Why do you waste medicine on us?" inquired the translator, while observing the German forces' utilization of supplies that had not been seen in years. The translator explained that new bandages, clean iodine, and painkillers were available, but the medic clarified that you were now a patient, not enemies. They would use approximately $50 worth of sulfur powder that day, in contrast to the $250 they had spent on German prisoners who were working for the German Army Command. The most surprising change was the fact that most of the women had not washed their feet for months, and the dirt, blood, and filth had vanished. Each bowl of water was black immediately. Elsa gasped as her feet were placed in the water. The warmth was wonderful, and the doctor was carefully working on the dead tissue, as if it might improve. "This might be a painful experience," he warned the patient. Despite the iodine's burning, it was a pure, healing wound that was distinct from the silent rot that had been consuming her. They worked in fast-paced, meticulous teams, giving each woman at least 20 minutes of proper care. "How terrible is this?" asked Major Thompson. "I've seen a terrible trench foot, and we need more supplies." The major replied quickly, "Let's not waste supplies on enemies. We want to get more." The reason for this swiftness was not solely due to kindness. Helga remained standing without the urge to take off her boots. The doctor observed, "You too." She let go of her boots and shook her head. "I'm fine. That wasn't asked of me." Helga had to step back a bit, as she couldn't keep up. The infection was much more serious than what she thought, and she untied her boots by shaking her hands before the boot fell down and dried blood stained the floor. When she pulled her sock down, there was more blood than she could have put on cloth, and her foot remained stuck in glass pieces from a broken shop window. She had walked through the window 3 weeks ago. There was no time to stop. The medical professional counted at least 30 glass fragments, and after 3 weeks, she confirmed that they were 300 mem/tur high. "Pain was my friend," she said. She was still moving and ahead of the Russian army when the medic referred to the pain, which required the removal of small tweezers, a small knife, and medication. He then proceeded to remove the glass. The pile grew larger as each piece clinked into a pan. 1, 2, 5, 10. Then Helga remained motionless. The medic, Private Miller, worked to stop the bleeding, covered it with gauze, and added more sulfur powder. But then something happened that completely silenced Helga. There were 25 pieces, some of which were deep and required careful cutting. The British doctor who was cutting the glass was weeping, and his face was filled with tears, which Helga could not comprehend. What prompted a British soldier to cry for her German wounds, as she explained in plain English? The medic, Private Miller, recounted his experience, noting that his sister had succumbed to an infection in 1943 when she stepped on a nail at home. He participated in the war effort and stated that he would never allow infections to kill anyone, even if it was for the betterment of humanity. "The reason we check our feet is that infection can spread, and it is more deadly than gunfire." He cried out for his enemy's pain, remembering his own loss. Helga muttered the German words. She was unable to comprehend it, The British Army's need for foot inspection twice daily was crucial, and it significantly reduced injuries compared to the First World War. Private Miller stated that walking is a prerequisite for survival. If you can't walk, you're not going to fight. Preventing infection is crucial to prevent disease outbreaks. One rotting foot could spread sickness across the camp, endangering guards and prisoners. This was the logical reason for the kindness. Helga's feet were meticulously cleaned, washed, and wrapped in white bandages, which was a significant change from what she had seen in 2 years. Then the women realized something more. The act of washing the feet of German prisoners was performed by British nurses who were kneeling in front of them, much like performing religious rituals. Lieutenant Mary Smith, a nurse from London, was on her knees in the mud, and the German woman was crying, not from pain, but from the deep meaning of the gesture. Like Christ, the German women whispered. British women, their foes, knelt down to wash away the infection, blood, and dirt with gentle hands and warm water. They were treated by 50 British nurses who worked long shifts. Elsa observed a nurse clean her between her dead toes. "Why?" she asked the nurse in English, responding to her request without any political commentary or anguish. The water in the bowls changed from black to brown to red before turning clear. The nurses changed the water frequently, treating the women with respect. One nurse even took off her boots and showed her own damaged feet from Europe. "We're all just feet," she said, crushing the hearts of the German women who had been affected by their kindness. The falsehoods propagated by the Nazi propaganda were disintegrating. They had been taught that the British were cruel. Many were forced to cry openly due to the kindness they did not deserve. A nurse was quietly singing a hymn, Amazing Grace, as she worked. German women, reminiscing about their time in their churches, began to hum along while enemies humming and washing their feet. It was an incredible sight as the sound of war faded away. Finally, the tension subsided as Hilda, Hitler's 19-year-old blonde auxiliary, stood up. "This is not true. The image you're capturing is not genuine." Hilda, with her feet bandaged, was unable to change her mind after 8 years of being taught that the Jews were evil and oppressed. She yelled out to the other person, saying, "Don't be deceived. Stay strong." Hilda was calmly addressed by Lieutenant Smith, who explained that he would not be caught on camera and would only provide medical advice. "We are aware that all of you are both Jews and communists, and we shared our desire to prevent a disease from spreading. That's it." The brawl intensified, and Helga was left visibly shaken. Hilda's words were authentic. Show them who you are." Lieutenant Smith, the nurse, opted to proceed. She stood close by and slowly rolled her sleeve. The tattooed numbers on Sarah Mitchell's arm caused the German women to stare blankly. A734 represented not only her identity as a British nurse, but also revealed her Jewish heritage from the Holocaust. The Germans had killed her entire family. The tent was silent as the 47 German women looked at the proof of the horrors they were told. "I wash your feet," Sarah said quietly. Anna whispered, "I'm choosing to be better than what has been done to us. God bless." Sarah returned to work, kneeling on Hilda's infected feet. The former leader of Hitler's youth was frozen in thought. Sarah went on to say, "Your feet hurt. Politics don't care." Hilda began to tremble. The sight of a Jew saving her feet after the Germans killed her family caused her to lose everything. The other women began to cry, some falling to their knees in silent confession. "We didn't know," Clara Ara cried out. Sarah replied calmly, "You didn't even care. The kindness you showed us was having a negative impact. It was ruining their faith." "Why would you help us?" Hilda muttered. "Hate is a deadly weapon," as Sarah explained. "I choose not to bring it on." After washing Hilda's feet, she stood, and watched them. Your feet are treated, and your infections will heal. What you do with your health is up to you. Hilda fell to her knees before Sarah, and she wept uncontrollably. They had everything, including the trains, missing passengers, and smoke, which they opted not to see. Hilda gasped to admit their shock. We were made human, as Sarah pointed out. And we were the beasts. The emotional breakdown was complete. 47 German women had to accept responsibility for their actions, assisting the machine of killing through the care of their feet. 73% of German PSWs attributed the foot treatment as the moment when they completely changed their minds. 6 months later, former German auxiliaries started volunteering as nurses in British field hospitals. A group of 3,000 ex-German PSWs volunteered at Allied medical centers to start fresh beginnings. Helga was responsible for transporting a wheelchair to an injured British soldier. Hilda helped with the organizing of medical supplies. Sarah was working with her fellow Holocaust survivor and former Nazi leader. During the Nuremberg trials, Helga spoke about the feat, stating that it demonstrated the truth. She argued that the British had spent a lot of money on foot washing, which proved that democracy treated enemies with kindness. The moment when 47 German women recognized the enemy's lies was when they realized that they were not the lies they believed, unlike countries that clean their enemies' feet with gas chambers. Hilda established a medical center. Elsa authored medical literature, and Helga wedded Private Miller, the British doctor who sobbed while taking off her glass. The uncomplicated request, "Show us your feet," was an epiphany. The rudimentary, everyday area of the body demonstrated that kindness could attract hate. If you were moved by this narrative, keep reading. There are many other genuine stories like this one out there. Don't miss out on the next one.